Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive. And this time we're diving headfirst into the world of AI. It's everywhere, right?
Yeah, it really does feel like it's moving at the speed of light.
Totally. And it's kind of freaking everyone out a little too.
Well, understandably. It's powerful stuff,
Well,
and we're only just beginning to grasp its implications.
exactly. So we've got a really interesting mix of articles for this deep dive. We'll be looking at Microsoft's little privacy hiccup with their AI tool, the rise of something called AI Whispers, which sounds kind of spooky, but is actually super cool. And then we'll even get into how AI is changing the way we grow food.
It should be fascinating. What really struck me when I was reading these articles is just how fine a line we're walking with AI these days. We're talking incredible potential, but also some serious ethical questions that we can't ignore.
Yeah, for sure. And that Microsoft thing is a perfect example. They were basically going to let AI take screenshots of your screen anytime, any place.
Can you imagine everything you do on your computer, fair game for AI to capture?
Yeah.
No wonder there was such a backlash.
Oh, people were freaking out. I felt like every privacy nightmare rolled into one.
Rightfully so. Think about it. Files, photos, emails, your browsing history. That's a goldmine of personal data just waiting to be mined.
And who knows what they would have done with it.
Exactly. And that's the thing about AI. It can process and analyze information on a scale we can barely comprehend.
So when you have that kind of power aimed at your personal data, well, let's just say it raises some eyebrows.
To put it mildly. And look, it's not like Microsoft was oblivious to the concerns. They did hit pause on the rollout, made it an opt-in feature instead of automatic,
Yeah, they kind of had to after all that.
for sure. And they're promising tighter security. But it does make you wonder, have we reached a point where even the tech giants are struggling to keep up with the ethical implications of what they're building?
Right. Like they're creating this incredibly powerful AI, and then it's like, oh, wait a minute, maybe we need to think about the consequences a little more.
It's a tough one, because on the one hand, you don't want to stifle innovation,
No, of course not.
but on the other hand, we can't just let things run wild, right? We need safeguards, ethical frameworks,
Yeah.
and we need them yesterday.
So where do we even begin?
Honestly, it starts with conversations like this, raising awareness, asking tough questions, and demanding more transparency from the companies developing these technologies.
Because it's not just about this one Microsoft tool, right? This is about setting a precedent for the future of AI.
100%. If we're not careful, we could end up in a world where our every move is tracked, analyzed, and potentially used against us. And that's not a future any of us want to see.
It's almost like we're playing catch-up, isn't it? Like the technology is already light years ahead of the ethical considerations.
It's a common theme with emerging technologies, unfortunately. But speaking of fascinating and potentially unnerving developments, we have to talk about these AI whisperers. Did you ever think you'd see the day when that was a real job title?
Right, it sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie. But from what I gathered from this article, it's actually a thing.
A very real and rapidly growing thing. As we push the boundaries of what AI can do, we're realizing it's not enough to just feed it mountains of data.
We have to actually teach it to, like, think.
Exactly. It's about instilling a deeper level of understanding, a way to interpret information contextually, just as humans do.
Okay, so that's where these whisperers come in. Like, they're the ones who bridge the gap between human intelligence and artificial intelligence.
Precisely. We're talking about individuals with specialized expertise in fields you might not typically associate with AI. Historians, linguists, even philosophers.
So instead of just recognizing patterns, AI is actually learning to understand the nuances of human language, history, culture.
Yes, and it can get even more granular than that. There's this company, Invisible Tech, that connects AI companies with this global network of experts.
Wow, it's like they're building a brain trust for AI.
In a sense, yes. It's about bringing that human element back into the equation, making sure AI isn't just a cold, calculating machine. And it made me think of that other article about AI in agriculture.
Oh, yeah. And that one really threw me for a loop. I mean, I knew AI was being used in farming, but I had no idea it was at this level.
It's pretty mind-blowing, isn't it? We're talking about AI systems that can analyze soil conditions, monitor plant health, and even optimize irrigation down to the individual plant.
Like that quote from Dr. Grant, in 20 years, we'll look back and wonder how we ever treated an entire field the same. It kind of gives me chills, you know?
It speaks volumes about the transformative potential of AI, not just in agriculture, but across every industry. And it circles back to those ethical questions we were discussing earlier.
Yeah, because this level of precision and control is amazing, But it also raises some red flags, right? Like, what about the farmers who don't have access to this kind of technology? Will they be left behind?
That's a huge concern. And it's not just about access to the technology itself, but also the knowledge and skills required to utilize it effectively. We need to ensure that the benefits of AI are shared equitably
Hmm.
and that we're not inadvertently exacerbating existing inequalities.
Right, because what good is all this amazing technology if it only benefits a select few? We don't want to create a two-tiered society where some people have access to these incredible tools and others are left struggling to keep up. And speaking of struggling to keep up, this whole conversation about AI's impact on agriculture got me thinking about, well, our own jobs.
A valid concern, and one that's explored in detail in this next article we have lined up. It delves into 5 skills that AI is already capable of automating, some of which might surprise you. Writing, art and design, data entry, data analysis, and even video editing.
Wait, hold on a second. Video editing, too. That's a little unsettling. It feels like AI is coming for all of our jobs.
It's easy to feel that way, especially when you see headlines about robots taking over the world. But this article takes a slightly different approach.
Oh, how so?
Instead of focusing solely on what AI can do, it shifts the conversation to what AI can't do yet.
Okay, so it's not all doom and gloom then.
Not at all. It's about recognizing that there are still certain skills that remain uniquely human, things like creativity, critical thinking, and complex problem solving. These are the areas where we, as humans, continue to have a significant advantage.
So it's like instead of trying to beat AI at its own game, we need to focus on what makes us human, right?
Exactly. And this article makes a really interesting comparison. It talks about pilots and autopilots.
Yeah, okay.
So think about it. Autopilot is incredible, right? It can handle a lot of the heavy lifting. But you still need a skilled human pilot in the cockpit, ready to take over when things get complicated or when those split-second decisions need to be made.
I see what you mean. So AI is like the autopilot, but we're the pilots, ultimately responsible for steering the ship.
Exactly. It's a partnership. AI can handle the routine tasks, analyze data on a massive scale, but when it comes to those uniquely human skills, creativity, empathy, critical thinking, that's where we come in. And honestly, that's a pretty empowering way to look at it, don't you think?
Yeah. It is. Because it means we're not just passive bystanders in this AI revolution. We have agency. We get to decide how this technology shapes our world. But how do we actually do that? I mean, it all feels so big, so fast-moving. Where do we even start?
You know, it might sound cliche, but I think it starts with education. And I'm not just talking about learning to code or understanding the technical ins and outs of AI, although that's certainly important too.
So what are we talking about then?
We need to educate ourselves about the potential implications of this technology, both the good and the bad, the biases that can creep into AI systems, the ethical dilemmas we're already facing, and the societal impact of widespread automation.
Because knowledge is power, right?
Exactly. The more informed we are, the better equipped we'll be to make responsible choices about how we develop, use, and regulate AI. We need to be having these conversations at every level, from government policy down to individual choices about the technologies we use in our daily lives.
So it's not just about waiting for someone else to fix it. We all have a role to play in shaping the future of AI.
100%. And that's what I find so exciting about this moment in time. It feels like we're standing on the cusp of something truly transformative, but it's up to us to decide what that transformation looks like.
Wow, well said. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from privacy concerns to the future of work to AI's incredible potential in fields like agriculture. And I have to say, I've gone from feeling kind of intimidated by AI to cautiously optimistic.
That's the goal. Because AI isn't inherently good or bad. It's a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or ill. It all depends on the humans behind it.
So if there's one thing our listeners take away from this conversation, I hope it's this. Don't be afraid of AI. Be curious, get informed, and most importantly, get involved.
Couldn't have said it better myself. The future of AI is ultimately in our hands. Let's make sure we shape it wisely.
Absolutely. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the ever-evolving world of AI. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, stay curious.